Your mic is off.
Thank you for letting me know that. Easy. I welcome you all. Hello, everyone. I welcome Sangha members as well as new visitors to our site, to our Sangha. I welcome all. Thank you for coming. So today, I would like to talk about the quality and the nature of the energy that you're feeling right now and that you typically feel on an ongoing basis. First, I'm just going to share a few facts. It won't be long. I read an article recently where, due to the lockdown, a lot of opioid overdoses, whether accidental or intentional, many times the normal rate. So there are those that are alienated. There are those that are unhappy and they see no other way of dealing with this than to self-medicate, sometimes with lethal results. And that's by far on the upswing this year. The number of folks that have succumbed to opioid overdose. Also, about a quarter of women, according to a recent survey, about a quarter of women in the US in their 40s and 50s take antidepressants. About 10% of men in the age group take them. And the use does not vary by income status. So even those that are well off have about the same rate of antidepressants. All these things have a place, antidepressants have a place, but I'm just talking about the prevalence in our society. So many of us have very high standards of living, yet so many suffer from boredom, alienation, anxiety, exhaustion, chronic anger. The list goes on and on. Negativity is so prevalent. It's obvious. Also, how many around us spend a lot of their time on everyday entertainment? TV shows, movies, YouTube, video games, overindulging in drugs and alcohol. Now, I'm not putting down these activities. I enjoy them to a degree. I'm speaking about those that have a problem with it. Too many hours spent compulsively trying to reach some kind of happiness. Many, if not all, over time realize that long-term such a lifestyle does not work, isn't giving the joy and satisfaction that they had originally. And this too has been my experience. Before coming to the teachings, I had the exact same experience, that whatever solutions I looked for my dissatisfaction, to my spiritual dissatisfaction or emotional, whatever, it works for a while, and then long term, I revert more or less back to my everyday, usual, mundane self. I'd like to give a very short quote from a philosopher, Blaise Pascal. All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. End of quote. I've read that sentiment many, many times from others that are creators, that are singer-songwriters, that are scientists or artists that need to invent, need to come up with creative and exciting new solutions. Many of them find it by going deep within themselves. And of course, this brings me back to our teachings. So, in my opinion, and I think it's pretty obvious, that in our society, there's way too much emphasis placed on satisfying oneself through person, place, or thing. Just look at the TV shows, look at the movies, look at what many of these are selling, are what kind of values that they represent. So a few years ago, I discovered Edgy's teachings and I practiced diligently. For me, the teachings were a near perfect fit. When I meditated, I could fairly and quickly and easily experience divine bliss entering my energy field, or at least that's how it felt, and it still does, even more so. I'm going to read to you from an email I sent to Edgy over 2 years ago, which is still true to what I experience today. As I abide in my presence, my usual mundane sensations transform, and I become absorbed in an already existing vibrational field, which feels more me than my usual sense of self. This vibrational field is either a sheet or is formless. It's hard to tell. It doesn't always conform to my physical body. The vibration of the field is unified and feels multidimensional. That is, the feeling of bliss, of well-being, even euphoria is at the same time blissful in a sensory way. I feel the bliss, while also giving a feeling of philosophical, existential, and emotional well-being and bliss. There is a calmness within me. In every way, in all my facets, it is unified. The bliss is extended. Mundane perceptions seem paper thin, as they are only sometimes or momentarily fulfilling. Otherwise, as they are space, time, and circumstance bound. Their fickle nature means that the bliss is generally short-lasting, temporary, and unpredictable. So I go on to say, while abiding in my field of bliss, it feels extended into a higher dimension, into depth. Rather than cardboard thin, it has real substance, projection, and real power and energy. Such is the power of blissons. Now, blissons is a word that I coined to represent this field of divine energy, these particles or energy stream. So the field has energy and light as well. It seems to have its own energy source, an intelligence, depth, mysteriousness, and always feels good. So I just went on to explain that I can allow myself to relax into this field of vibration, into this vibrational part of me, which always seems to be always there. And the more I focus on it, the more it fills in and the more real and tangible it becomes, the more vivid and dense it becomes. End of quote from my email. Okay, so thanks for letting me read that. Recently, while being in beingness, beingness being the state that we feel from if we relax into ourselves, into our bodies, and just relax and not look for any result, but feel the body from within, as if you're wearing your body as a coat. Feel the body from within. Feel the energy of your awareness. So we all know what beingness is, but I just wanted to give a short introduction. But recently, while in this state, I became increasingly more aware of a felt sense of an energetic cord extending through my feet. This energetic cord seems so long into what I feel and see is of a higher dimension. And the blissful energy from these higher or divine dimensions enter into me, replenish me, and communicate intelligence, light, and for me especially, very dense otherworldly euphoria and bliss, which for me has always been a fantastic reward. The bliss is, once I have found the bliss and once I have abided in the bliss, everything is good. I just want to continue on and on. It's so good. I wasn't sure if this was also experienced by others until I recently reread Edgy's amazing book, Self-Realization and Other Awakenings. And I quote from page 96. One arrives at the state by locating the sense of I within one's subtle body and following it downwards through the causal body into the core self. Turiya, bliss, and the I am feeling open a tunnel for the meditator to follow in order to claim the deepest state of personal consciousness. End of quote. So there we have it. There I had my confirmation that this cord that I felt extending through my feet into higher dimensions and through which led to greater sense of beingness is validated through Edgy's amazing book. There is a point I'd like to clarify, that the instruction for beingness is to lessen identification and eventually stop identifying with the body mind as the center of the self. But in my experience, this doesn't mean that your usual self will disappear. I can attest that despite a long practice of abiding in beingness, my usual, sometimes enthusiastic, sometimes joyful and humorous, and in other times somewhat grouchy self, etc., is as much part of me as it's always been. It's just that I don't feel confined to it 24/7. I can transport my awareness into the totality of self, into beingness. Whoops. Yes. I will speak of the benefits after the following beingness break. Please join me for a few minutes, just a few minutes, to replenish our energy and connect with each other energetically in beingness. So I'm going to recommend that, if possible, we close our eyes and just relax, fully relax into your sense of presence, into the body as it feels from within. We can be dumb as a rock. We can move our awareness below the neck into the chest or belly. That would be great, but just don't try for any result. Just fully relax. And just be open to the totality of the moment. We're going to spend 3 minutes in this state, after which we will continue. Thank you for joining me. Starting now. That has been 3 minutes, folks. You're welcome to continue or open your eyes, depending on how you feel. I just want to make a point that one of the biggest problems in the mundane self is what to do with empty time. So, for example, I frequently ride the subway, and the half hour it takes to get somewhere can be tedious. I can look for ways to fill it in, to read something or listen to something, and it could become an annoying aspect of oneself. But now, when I have a subway ride, I go, hey, I can do beingness. And you know what? It works. It's like I now have this wonderful opportunity to sink into the divine. And it ceases to be, so when I talk about being confined to the body mind, that's part of it, is not having this wonderful replenishment of the divine, of the higher dimensional aspects of the self. But through abiding in beingness, for me, I have access. I just want to read a few more lines from Edgy's classic work, Self-Realization and Other Awakenings. So this is actually from the introduction, which is also intended for brand new people to our teachings. There are rooms within the spiritual mansion which are you, that have never been explored, because from infancy onward, we've all been educated, indoctrinated, acculturated, and nailed into boxes of social conformity and multiple networks of thought and communication. The world of our senses is really an interpretation of an underlying real, as experienced through multiple cognitive filters. Both the real external world and the real self are far different from what we now experience. From page 105 of the same book, if you go into the void or into the witness, you gain freedom from emotions, pressures, and stress. If you go into emotions, you gain intensity and freedom from boredom. If you identify with love, you can be the lover or become love itself. Freedom. He goes on to say, what these experiences do, and the knowledge does, is free you from the places that you are stuck as a person, in a place or in a situation. You can accept many identities, many situations, many experiences without leaving your house. It's freedom. 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 So, end of quote. So in my own words, there are many options through our teachings to regenerate, to spend time abiding in divine healing bliss, which feels to me absolutely from another higher world, but also feels totally and in full depth of who I really am. It feels like the resting place, the true source, the true center of my totality of self. Abiding in beingness on a regular daily basis has been of absolutely phenomenal benefit to me. Thank you for allowing me to share, everyone. We have more to go, but my reading to you and talking to you is about to segue into a different segment. I'm actually, yeah, it's okay. I'm going to